Tonight, we're going to explore one of the most unsettling truths in modern science. The darkness of space is not the darkness you know. It is not the dark of a closed room or a moonless field or the deepest part of the ocean. Every darkness you have ever experienced on Earth still contains something. A trace of light bouncing off air, a stray photon scattered by dust, a faint glow from the sky itself. The space between the stars contains almost none of that. The interstellar medium holds roughly 1 atom per cubic centimeter. The air around you holds 27 billion. Almost nothing to scatter light. Almost nothing to soften the void. Almost nothing between you and the absolute. By the end of tonight, you're going to understand why human eyes, evolved across millions of years on a luminous planet, were never built for that kind of dark. How the same emptiness that frightens us also explains the age and expansion of the universe, and what it means for a species that may one day have to live inside it. Before we get started, if you love exploring the depths of space as much as we do, take a second to like the video or subscribe. It's a simple action, but it helps this channel reach more curious minds like yours. Now, let's begin. Start with the darkness you know. You turn off the lights. The room goes black. Your eyes adjust. And after a minute or two, shapes begin to emerge from the shadow. The outline of a window. The edge of a door. The pale rectangle of a ceiling. You would call this darkness. Most people would. But here is what is actually happening. Your pupils are dilating, opening wider to gather more light. Your rod cells, the photoreceptors in the eye tuned for low light conditions, are shifting into high sensitivity. That process takes roughly 20 minutes to complete. And what those cells are gathering, even in a room with every light switched off, is not nothing. There is light coming through the curtains from the street lamp 2 doors down. There is a faint blue edge around the window frame where the sky itself is glowing. The moon, if it is up, is reflecting 8% of the sunlight falling on it. And that reflected light travels across 250,000 miles to reach your window and pass through the gap in your curtains and land on your retina. A full moon can cast a shadow. That is not poetic language. That is physics. Your dark room is not dark. It is a low-light environment. There is a difference, and that difference is the first thing to understand. Think of it this way. Imagine a room that feels completely silent. No voices, no music, no traffic. Complete silence, you would say. But the room is full of sound you have simply stopped hearing. The hum of a refrigerator. The faint percussion of a building settling. The white noise of air moving through a vent. Silence is not absence of sound. It is the sound that falls below your threshold of notice. Earth darkness works the same way. What you perceive as darkness is the light that falls below your threshold of attention. The photons are still arriving. You have simply stopped counting them, and there are more sources than most people realize. Even on a clear night, far from any city, the sky is not dark. There is starlight. Thousands of individual stars contributing photons to every square centimeter of open sky. There is the Milky Way, the faint smear of our own galaxy's arm, which on the darkest nights is bright enough to cast a shadow of its own. There is something called air glow, a phenomenon where molecules of the upper atmosphere absorb ultraviolet radiation during the day and release it again at night as a diffuse green and red luminescence. Air glow is invisible to casual attention, but measurable and real, a permanent low-level illumination that wraps the entire planet. There is also zodiacal light, sunlight scattered off microscopic dust particles that fill the inner solar system, spread in a faint cone rising from the horizon, along the path of the sun. On very dark nights, away from any artificial light. The zodiacal light is visible as a soft triangular glow after sunset or before dawn. Ancient observers noticed it and thought it was the light of the sun reflecting off the sea. It was the light of the sun reflecting off dust. But the point is this: it was light. Even in antiquity, before electricity, before cities, the sky was not empty of illumination. And then there are the cities themselves. Light pollution is a well-documented phenomenon, but its reach is remarkable. The glow of a major city extends not for miles, but for hundreds of miles in every direction. The air above a city scatters artificial light upward and outward, and that scattered glow can wash out stars even for observers standing in open fields, far from any visible buildings. For roughly 80% of people living in North America and Europe, the Milky Way is no longer visible from their homes. Not because it is gone, because the sky above them is flooded with redirected light from sources they cannot even see. But the reality was different. Even when you drive hours from any city, even when you find a dark sky site far enough that the horizon is completely black in every direction, even then, you're not standing in true darkness. The airglow is still there. The zodiacal light is still there. The stars are still delivering photons. The atmosphere itself is still scattering faint traces of sunlight that have bounced around the day side of the planet and leaked into the night. On the night side of Earth, there is no position from which you can escape light entirely. You can reduce it. You can find places where it is fainter than most people ever experience. But you cannot reach zero. Not here. Not on this planet. What we call darkness on Earth is a calibrated baseline. It is what happens when you subtract the obvious sources and are left with the residual. But residual is not absence. A night under open stars is not dark in the physical sense. It is luminous in ways the eye was not built to register consciously, but that the instruments of physics can measure without any difficulty at all. This matters because the universe contains environments where even that residual is gone, where the faint glow of air glow would be an impossibility because there is no atmosphere to glow, where the scattering of city light would be irrelevant because there is no air to scatter it, where starlight itself becomes so thin, so rare, that the count of photons reaching any given point drops from thousands per second to 1 per hour, or 1 per day, or none at all, within any span of time that means anything to a human being. Earth darkness is not a preview of that. Earth darkness is barely a beginning. If the darkness of your bedroom at night is the quietest room you have ever sat in, the darkness between the galaxies is the vacuum of deep space, where no medium exists through which sound can travel at all. The comparison is not poetic. It is precise. And the distance between those two conditions is almost impossible to hold in the mind. Almost. But that is what tonight is for. The darkness beyond Earth's atmosphere is the next layer to pull back. And what lies just above the sky is already more extreme than anything the surface of this planet can offer. Let yourself rise, just for a moment, above the air. Not metaphorically, physically. Imagine the last wisps of atmosphere thinning beneath you, the scattering layer dissolving, the faint luminescent wrap of the airglow falling away below like a lamp left on in a room you have just left. And now there is nothing between you and the rest of the universe. No medium, no scatter, no suspended particles catching passing light and softening the dark into something manageable. This is where the astronauts have stood, and what they describe, almost without exception, is not what they expected. We carry an image of space built from photographs, stars on a black background, bright points in every direction, the Earth glowing blue below. It looks dramatic, but it also looks lit. It looks like a room with light sources. And that image has quietly shaped the assumption that space is dark, the way a room is dark. Deep, yes, but navigable. Still populated with visible signal. The reality stops that assumption cold. Bruce McCandless discovered this in 1984. On February 7th of that year, he became the first human being to perform an untethered spacewalk, floating free of any spacecraft, held to nothing, roughly 300 feet from the Shuttle Challenger. He was not just above the atmosphere, he was exposed to space in a way no one had been before. And he described the darkness when looking away from the Earth and away from the sun as something different in kind from any darkness he had encountered in his life. Not a deep version of familiar dark, something else entirely. A void that felt almost physical, a complete absence of signal that the brain did not know how to process. He held his hand away from the reflected light of Earth. He could not see it, not dimly, not as a silhouette. He could not see it at all. Other astronauts have reported versions of the same experience. The brain, it turns out, does not simply perceive darkness as the low end of a brightness scale. It expects texture. It expects some variation in the signal, some grain to the nothing, some evidence that photons are arriving even if only a few. In the darkness between the stars, that expectation is simply refused. The visual system reaches out and finds nothing to hold. No scatter, no glow at the edge of things. Nothing. The answer was stranger than expected. The darkness is not caused by an absence of photons. There are photons crossing through that space in enormous numbers. Light from every star in every direction is passing through the exact point where McCandless floated, traveling in straight lines towards somewhere else. The universe around him was full of light in transit. He could not see any of it. This is the principle that everything else in tonight's journey depends on. Light is invisible in transit. A photon traveling through space does not announce itself. It does not glow, it does not illuminate the space it passes through. A photon is only perceived when it does one of two things. It enters an eye, or it strikes a surface and reflects into an eye. If it does neither, it might as well not exist from the perspective of any observer. In a room on Earth, light seems to fill the air itself, but it does not. What you are seeing is the room, the walls, the ceiling, the dust in the air, every particle catching photons and bouncing them in new directions. Some of those new directions pointing toward your eyes. Remove all the surfaces, remove all the particles, and the light becomes invisible even though it is everywhere. You are surrounded by photons and you see nothing. Space does this to perfection. The reason is the emptiness itself. Interstellar space contains roughly 1 atom per cubic centimeter. 1. A sugar cube-sized volume of space, the kind of volume you could hold between 2 fingers, contains a single atom. That same sugar cube volume of the air you are breathing right now contains approximately 27, followed by 18 zeros atoms. 27 billion billion. The vacuum of space is not just thinner than Earth's air. It is a different category of condition. There is no laboratory vacuum on Earth that approaches it. The best vacuums human technology can produce are still billions of times denser than the space between stars. We do not have the equipment to create what nature simply is out there. With almost nothing present to scatter light, photons cross that space untouched. They do not announce their passage. They carry no signal to any observer they do not directly reach. And so, the darkness between the stars is not the darkness of a room with all the lights off. It is not even the darkness of the deepest cave or the most remote desert at midnight. It is the darkness of a place where the mechanism that creates perceived brightness, light striking something and reflecting toward an eye, is simply absent. That is not darkness on a scale you can calibrate from Earth. That is a different thing. Wait. This matters for something you already understand. On Earth, even the void of a clouded, moonless, light-polluted sky still fills with scatter, with airglow, with dust caught in the beam of distant cities. The brain has always had something to work with. It has never, in any human life lived on the surface of this planet, encountered the kind of nothing that McCandless encountered. The brain's failure to process it is not a failure of imagination. It is a failure of precedent. The sensory system developed in an environment where some photons always arrive. It has no category for the alternative. McCandless floating 300 feet from Challenger, hand invisible in front of his face, was not experiencing a dramatic version of a dark night. He was experiencing something outside the entire range of human evolutionary experience, and the darkness he encountered was not even the deepest darkness available. It was close to Earth. It was near a star. Between him and true cosmic emptiness, there was still a very long way to go. The layers of dark beyond that point go deeper still, in ways that the physics of light, distance, and the expansion of the universe make stranger than any simple absence of stars. The void McCandless stood in was, in one sense, just the beginning of the descent. So keep going outward, carry the principle further. The same physics that made McCandless's hand invisible holds at every scale. The question is what happens when you apply it not to the gap between an astronaut and a shuttle, but to the gap between one star and the next. Imagine a spacecraft, not near Earth, not near any planet, not near any star, somewhere in the space between solar systems, far enough from the sun that it has become just another point of light, far enough from every other star that they too are just points, scattered thinly against the dark. You are in the region astronomers call interstellar space, and the first thing you would notice is that there is nothing to notice. No surface, no gradient, no texture in the darkness at all. Your eyes are among the most sensitive instruments biology has ever produced. Under ideal conditions, a fully adapted human eye can detect a single photon. In this place, there is functionally no signal to detect. The space between stars is not a good vacuum by human standards. It is a near-perfect one. And even where a photon does pass through, there is almost nothing to scatter it, almost nothing to redirect it toward an eye. You hold your hand in front of your face, just as McCandless held his, and you cannot see it, not faintly, not as an outline. The hand touching your nose is invisible, in the same total way, but now there is no shuttle to look back toward, no Earth, no planet. The nearest star, any nearest star, is years away measured in the speed of light. And here is where it gets strange, because from the surface of the Earth, this does not feel possible. The night sky from a dark field, far from any city, appears densely populated. Stars spread in every direction, the Milky Way arching overhead. It feels like a full sky, but that fullness is an illusion. It is an artifact of geometry and limited human senses. Under ideal conditions, on the best dark night, a human being can see roughly 5,000 stars with the naked eye. 5,000, out of hundreds of billions in the galaxy alone. And those 5,000 appear close together only because they are all very far away, and because the human eye cannot resolve the distance between them. They are not close together. They are not even approximately close together. The nearest star to the Sun, Proxima Centauri, is about 4.25 light years away. That is roughly 25 trillion miles, about 40 trillion kilometers, and Proxima is the closest one. The average separation between stars in our region of the galaxy is around 5 light years. Not 4, not 4.25, 5. Think about what that means for the experience of standing between them. Place yourself halfway between two such stars. You are now roughly 2.5 light years from the nearest sun in either direction. In one direction, the sun. It is there. It is real. It is a star. But from 2.5 light years away, it does not illuminate anything. It does not cast a shadow. It is one bright point among the other points, distinguished only slightly by its relative brightness. It warms nothing. It illuminates nothing. It is a signal in a void, not a source of environmental light in any meaningful sense. All other directions extend trillions of miles before anything else. Not mostly empty, not emptier than a room. Functionally, structurally, completely empty. The human mind was not built for this. That is not a poetic observation. It is a consequence of evolution. The brain developed orientation systems for an environment where surfaces exist, where gravity provides a consistent down, where a horizon marks the meeting of two distinct regions, where scale can be gauged by the relative size of nearby objects. In interstellar space, none of those reference systems survive. There is no up, there is no down, there is no horizon, there is no near object whose angular size could tell you how far away the far ones are. There is only distance in every direction, and distant points of light that provide no information about their proximity. Astronauts orbiting Earth have described a form of orientation disruption in the absence of normal reference cues. They were still within sight of a planet. They still had a window. In interstellar space, the disconnection would be total. No ground, no sky, no scale, only the faint certainty that the universe continues, somewhere far away, in every direction equally. But the interstellar void is not the deepest level of emptiness accessible to physics. Not even close. Galaxies are separated from each other by distances that make the gap between stars look almost intimate. The Milky Way and its nearest large neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy, are roughly 2.5 million light years apart. The number is difficult to hold. To cross that distance at the speed of light would take 2.5 million years. Expressed in miles, it is approximately 15 followed by 18 zeros. And the space between them is not like interstellar space. Interstellar space contains roughly 1 atom per cubic centimeter, a sugar cube-sized volume with 1 atom in it. Intergalactic space is emptier still by a vast margin. The density between galaxies drops to roughly 1 atom per cubic meter, not cubic centimeter. Cubic meter, a volume the size of a refrigerator, and inside it, 1 atom. Nothing else. No other particle, no dust grain, no photon in transit with any significant probability of scatter. Pure geometric space with almost nothing in it. Now imagine placing a spacecraft in that void, halfway between the Milky Way and Andromeda, 1.25 million light years from either one. You look in one direction. The Milky Way is there. It is not a gallery of individual stars. It is not a resolved structure you can pick features out of. It is a faint smudge of light, a distant spiral, too far away to resolve into its component parts, visible only as a diffuse glow against the dark. You look in the opposite direction. Andromeda is there. Another smudge. Another distant spiral. In every other direction. Hundreds of thousands of light years of darkness before the next significant structure appears. The local group of galaxies surrounds you at a scale so large that even other galaxies are separated by these same kinds of distances. Here is the thing that changes how you see those two smudges. The sun is not visible as a separate point from that distance. It blends into the diffuse glow of the Milky Way. It is not distinguishable from the combined light of the hundreds of billions of other stars that make up the galaxy. Every life ever lived on Earth, every city ever built, every expedition ever launched, every observation ever made, the entirety of recorded history and all the history before it, all of it fits inside one of those two faint smudges of light, indistinguishable from either vantage point, contained in a glow so faint it would be easy to overlook. Not a chapter in the story of the universe, one dim pixel in a mostly dark image, and the darkness itself, the void surrounding those two smudges, is not the final layer. The universe has deeper levels still, where distance and physics combine to darken the sky in ways that have nothing to do with the absence of stars. Having seen all of that, having let the scale of it settle, a question rises naturally. Why does it look this way? The darkness surrounding those two faint smudges, the darkness between galaxies and between stars, why is it dark at all? The easy answer is that space produces no light. The stars are far away. Between them, there is nothing. So of course it is dark. That answer feels satisfying. It is also incomplete. Not incomplete in a minor way. Wrong in a way that changes the entire picture. Space is full of light. Not in a few places near active stars. Everywhere. Starlight moves in every direction through the galaxy. Light from billions of galaxies crosses intergalactic space. Quasars, some of the most energetic objects in the universe, pour out radiation across billions of light years, and threading through all of it, filling every cubic meter of space from the most distant observable galaxies all the way here, is the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the early universe, a hum of radiation that permeates everything. The universe is not poorly lit. It is saturated with photons. So, why is it dark? The answer has nothing to do with how much light exists. It has everything to do with how light works. A photon traveling through empty space is invisible. Not dim, not faint, completely invisible until it strikes something, a surface, a retina, a dust grain, an atom. Until the interaction happens, the photon simply moves. It carries energy across the void. It does not illuminate anything along the way, because illumination requires an interaction, and the vacuum provides none. Think about what happens with a beam of light on Earth. A flashlight pointed across a dusty room casts a visible shaft. You can see the beam itself, not just the spot where it lands. You can see it because millions of dust particles and air molecules are scattering the photons sideways, redirecting some of them toward your eyes. The air is participating. The light becomes visible before it arrives. Take away the air. Take away the dust. Remove every particle from the path. The beam becomes invisible in transit. The flashlight still works. The photons still travel. But there is nothing to scatter them into your field of view. The beam disappears from sight, even as it moves through space at full intensity. Space does this to every photon crossing it. The near-perfect vacuum means near-zero scattering. All those photons from all those galaxies are moving in every direction around you, and none of them are visible until they enter your eye directly, because there is nothing else to catch them. This has a consequence on a spacecraft that is easy to understand once you see it, and impossible to predict before you do. A surface facing the sun in low Earth orbit receives direct sunlight with no atmosphere to absorb or distribute it. That surface reaches roughly 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Move the spacecraft half a meter and look at a surface now in permanent shadow, never touched by direct light. That surface sits at roughly negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit. 500 degrees of difference across a distance you could cross in one step. No air surrounds the craft to equalize those temperatures, to carry warmth from the lit side to the dark side, to do what weather does on Earth. The heat stays exactly where the photons land, and nowhere else. Astronauts working outside a spacecraft during a spacewalk describe the same split. A surface in direct sunlight is blindingly bright, far brighter than anything feels under open sky on Earth, because there is no atmosphere softening the incoming light. Turn away from that surface and look into shadow. The shadow is absolute. A tool held in shadow becomes invisible, not hard to see, not dark looking, gone. The hand holding it can feel the tool, but cannot perceive it. The light that fills the surrounding space, the light that is genuinely there, moving in every direction, does nothing. There is nothing in the shadow for it to scatter from. The tool disappears into a region that the physics of vacuum keeps perfectly, completely dark. The picture did not hold, because the darkness of the night sky itself turns out to be a clue to something much larger. For a long time, thoughtful observers noticed a problem. If the universe is infinite, and if it is populated with stars through all of that infinity, then every line of sight you could draw outward from Earth eventually hits a star. Not might hit one, definitely hits one, because in an infinite star-filled space, stars fill every possible direction eventually. If that is true, the night sky should glow as bright as a stellar surface in every direction, not speckled with points of light, uniformly, completely ablaze. Every patch of sky, day and night, as bright as looking directly at the surface of the sun. The sky is not that way. The fact that the night sky is dark, that there are gaps between stars, that there is blackness at all, is a contradiction, a real one, and it needs an explanation. The universe has a finite age, roughly 13.8 billion years. Light travels at roughly 186,000 miles per second, which sounds fast, but in an old and expanding universe, it is also a hard limit. Light from a source that is more than about 13.8 billion light years away has not reached us yet. It left. It is traveling, but it has not arrived. It cannot have arrived. There has not been enough time. The observable universe has a horizon, not because space ends there, but because our view of space ends there. Beyond that horizon, light is still in transit. The sky in those directions carries no signal yet. And then there is expansion. The universe is growing. The most distant galaxies are receding from us. Not through space exactly, but with space itself stretching beneath them. The light they emit is stretched by that expansion. Its wavelength lengthens during the journey. Visible light shifts toward red, then past red, into infrared, and for the most distant sources, into microwave frequencies. Those galaxies are still emitting light. Some of that light is reaching us right now, but it is no longer visible. It has been shifted entirely out of the range the human eye can detect. The cosmic microwave background, that faint universal hum mentioned earlier, is exactly this. Ancient light from the early universe, redshifted across billions of years of travel into wavelengths we can only detect with radio telescopes. It is everywhere, and it is invisible to us in any ordinary sense. The night sky is dark for two reasons then, and both of them are the same kind of evidence. Not darkness from absence, darkness from limits. The universe is young enough that most of its light has not arrived, and the universe is expanding fast enough that much of what has arrived is no longer visible. The dark gaps between stars are not gaps in the universe, they are the shape of time. They are the signature of an expanding cosmos with a beginning. Space is full of light, traveling invisibly through a vacuum too empty to make it seen. The night sky is dark because the universe is not old enough and not static enough to fill it. Both of those facts, the invisible photon in transit and the darkness of the night sky itself, are pointing toward the same deeper thing, the structure and history of everything. And that structure has one more layer of darkness in it that we have not yet reached. That last layer is not out there in the intergalactic void. It is here. It is close. It is the body looking into the dark and finding there is nothing left to see. The human eye is one of the most light-sensitive instruments biology has ever produced. It evolved on a planet bathed in constant photons. Even in a deep cave on Earth, the eye has something to work with. Trace bioluminescence from organisms, faint chemical reactions in the rock, residual radiation from naturally occurring minerals. The eye was never designed for genuine absence, because genuine absence never existed on Earth long enough to require a design. Under ideal conditions, a dark adapted human eye can detect as few as roughly 100 photons entering the pupil. Some research suggests the sensitivity is even more extreme than that. Under the most carefully controlled experimental conditions, the eye may respond to a single photon, one particle of light. That is not a rounding error. That is biology approaching the physical flaw of what light detection can mean. And in true space darkness, none of it matters at all. Not slightly diminished, not working at reduced capacity, completely irrelevant. There are no photons to detect. Sensitivity calibrated to the faintest possible signal still requires a signal. In absolute shadow, in the space between stars, or on the night side of a dark body, the eye is not straining to see. It is operating perfectly in a condition for which it was never given any information at all. This is why spacecraft require artificial lighting for any work done outside direct sunlight. It is not a convenience. It is an engineering necessity rooted in physics that has nothing to do with human preference. The International Space Station uses extensive external lighting for every spacewalk conducted in shadow. On the station's dark side, an astronaut depends entirely on that artificial light. Without it, a tool held at arm's length would be as invisible as if it did not exist. Now consider what that means for the surfaces of the objects floating through space around us. Many asteroids reflect only 3 to 5% of the light that strikes them. This is called albedo, which means reflectivity, the fraction of incoming light that bounces back rather than being absorbed. An asteroid with 3% albedo is darker than coal, darker than asphalt on a summer road. It is one of the darkest natural material types known. When a spacecraft approaches one of these bodies, particularly the shadowed side, the asteroid does not appear as a dark shape. It appears as nothing, a black form against a black background. Computer processing is required to resolve it because the human eye and even most optical instruments have nothing to work with. Something else was happening. Place a person on the surface of such an asteroid. The sunlit side is harsh and bright, unfiltered by any atmosphere, casting shadows with absolute precision. Step into one of those shadows and the darkness is total. Not dim, not shaded, gone. A crater edge, a crevice, any feature not directly lit by the sun is invisible. There is no ambient scatter to fill it in. There is no atmospheric bounce. Light that does not reach a surface does not illuminate anything near it. On the night side of that asteroid, the sky is full of stars. Millions of them. More stars than any human standing on Earth has ever seen at once. And there is not enough light to see your hand. This is not a failure of perception. It is a consequence of geometry and physics. Stars are points. They do not illuminate the surfaces they shine toward at any meaningful intensity at human scale. The night side of an asteroid, like the night side of a moon, like the night side of any solid body without an atmosphere to scatter and equalize available light, is dark in the absolute physical sense. Not most of the way to dark, and then there is the inward layer. For a long time, a deep cave felt like the limit. A place on Earth where you could seal away every human light source and sit in something approaching real darkness. And it is true that deep caves are very dark, but they are not as dark as space. They are not even close to as dark as the interior of a sealed cavity inside a large asteroid. The reason is that you are there. Living organisms emit ultra-weak biological light. This is not metaphor. It is a documented, measurable byproduct of normal cellular metabolism. Specialized cameras, sensitive far beyond what the eye can do, can detect this light coming from living tissue. Every cell burning energy releases a tiny fraction of that energy as photons. You glow, in a real physical sense, at an intensity far below the threshold of ordinary vision. In a cave on Earth, this light goes nowhere useful, but it exists. The darkness you are sitting in contains you as a source. The cave is never as dark as a place with no living thing in it. In space, those photons travel outward and are gone. There is nothing nearby to reflect them back. There are no walls. There is no surface within reach. A cave with a person in it is brighter than empty space by a measurable, if tiny, amount. Now carry that logic one step further. Deep inside a large asteroid or moon, formed by ancient volcanism or impact, there are voids. Sealed chambers with no connection to the exterior. No sunlight can enter. No biological reflection can return from any surface that might catch and redirect it. The darkness in such a place would be more total than anything a human has experienced on Earth. More total than the deepest cave. More total than any isolation chamber. The only limit would be whatever faint glow the walls themselves might produce. And in ancient cold rock, even that fades toward nothing. This is not a hypothetical extreme. This is what physics produces when you remove every source and every reflective path. And the brain does not accept it passively. Sensory deprivation research, conducted in caves and isolation chambers over decades, consistently finds the same result. When the visual cortex is denied external input for an extended period, it generates its own. The brain does not go quiet. It produces phantom light, geometric patterns, complex imagery, shapes that organize themselves into scenes, colors that have no external source. People who have spent days in absolute darkness report visual experiences vivid enough to feel real, created entirely from within. In a sealed interior cavity, in the darkness of a large asteroid in deep space, an astronaut would begin to experience those effects. The stars outside would be invisible. The rock walls would be invisible. The body's own faint glow would be too weak to trigger any useful signal in the eye. And the visual cortex, starved of any returning photon, would begin to supply what the environment had taken away. The cave you imagined as the darkest place you could reach still contained you. Still contained your metabolism, your photons, your residual cellular light bouncing off walls a few meters away and returning faintly toward the eye. To find a place darker than that, you have to seal even that away. And there are places in the universe where it is sealed. Not just the interior of asteroids, any sufficiently deep interior. Any enclosed void far enough from a star that no light enters and no surface exists nearby to return what little a living body emits. The darkness available inside the universe is not just the darkness of open space, It is the darkness of enclosure, of absorption, of a brain generating its own stars because it can no longer find any real ones. The darkness outside is enormous. The darkness inside might be stranger. The brain that generates its own stars when starved of light is not just demonstrating a quirk of cortex chemistry. It is revealing something older, something that runs beneath the chemistry, beneath the neurons, beneath anything that could be called modern. Stay with the brain a moment longer and ask a different question. Not what happens when the visual cortex loses its signal. Ask why darkness feels the way it does at all, even when we know it shouldn't. Roughly 30% of the human brain is dedicated to visual processing, more than any other sense, more than hearing, more than touch, more than taste and smell combined. We are, at our foundation, creatures built to interpret light, to read surfaces, edges, movement, depth, color, threat. The brain does not merely use vision as one channel among several. It organizes reality around it. When vision fails, the whole architecture of orientation trembles. That is when the pattern broke. Losing vision on Earth is not losing orientation entirely. A person standing in a completely dark room still has the floor under their feet, still has air moving against their skin, temperature gradients suggesting nearby walls, the acoustic echo of their own breathing returning off close surfaces. These cues are subtle. Most of us barely notice them consciously, but they are there. The non-visual environment of Earth is rich with information. Surfaces, air, sound, thermal gradient, all of it telling the body where it is, what is near, whether something is moving. In space, nearly all of that disappears. Vacuum carries no sound. There is no air to press against the skin, no temperature gradient indicating that a wall is nearby, no acoustic return from a surface a meter away. The only sense that persists more or less intact is proprioception, the body's internal awareness of its own position and movement. You still know where your arm is relative to your shoulder. You still feel your heartbeat, but the external environment offers almost nothing back. The sensory conversation between a human body and its surroundings, a conversation evolution refined across hundreds of millions of years, goes nearly silent. This is a condition human evolution did not select for. Not once. In the entire history of our species, and the species that preceded us, no organism needed to function in a sensory environment this empty. There is no ancestral memory of vacuum. No inherited template for how to behave when the external world stops responding. And layered on top of that, darkness. Not the darkness of a cloudy night, not the darkness of a cave, which still echoes, still breathes, still has a flaw. The darkness of deep shadow in space. The darkness astronauts and cosmonauts have described encountering during spacewalks when they drift into the shadow cast by the vehicle or by the Earth itself. They know they are tethered. They know the shuttle or station is meters away. They know in every rational sense that they are safe. And still it comes. A primal unease that the rational mind cannot fully suppress. The explanation for that unease is not psychological weakness. It is evolutionary logic. Across the entire span of human history, darkness meant one thing: predators. The night was when the animals that could kill you became active and you became slow and half-blind. The ancestors who feared darkness, who retreated into shelter when the light failed, who felt that specific autonomic tightening in the chest when they could no longer see clearly, those ancestors survived in higher numbers. The ones who walked confidently into the dark and were unconcerned did not leave as many descendants. The fear was selected for generation after generation across hundreds of thousands of years. That inheritance is still inside us, not as a choice, as wiring. You can feel it in a child who cannot sleep without a light. You can feel it in the way a horror film does not need to show anything to create tension. It only needs to remove the light. The autonomic response fires before the rational mind has a chance to object. The chest tightens, the breathing shallows, the attention narrows. All of that happens even when you know you are sitting in a theater, even when you know the movie is fiction. The ancient system does not wait for permission from the reasoning brain. Now take that ancient system into space. In space, the darkness it meets is more extreme than anything the fear was ever calibrated for. Every darkness on Earth, even the deepest cave, even the most lightless night, contain the possibility of something alive, a predator in the shadows, a rival, a sound, an animal nearby. The fear of darkness on Earth was adaptive precisely because darkness on Earth was dangerous. There was something in it to be afraid of. The darkness of deep space contains nothing alive at all. No predators, no rivals, no animals, no organisms of any kind within light years in every direction. The threat is not hiding in the dark. The threat is the dark itself. The emptiness. The indifference of a universe in which the nearest living thing is the person floating inside the suit. And beyond that, across distances too large to hold in the mind, nothing. Some astronauts have described the moment of truly comprehending this, not intellectually, which is easy enough, but viscerally. The moment when the void stops being a concept and becomes a felt reality, when the mind grasps, in something deeper than language, that in every direction, across distances that would take light years to cross, there is nothing. Not something hidden, not something waiting, nothing. And somewhere in that nothing, barely visible even with a naked eye, is a small pale dot that contains every human being who has ever lived, every city ever built, every sound ever made. The responses to that moment divide. For some, it is liberating. If nothing out there assigns significance to human activity, then nothing out there can withdraw it either. The burden of cosmic scale meaning simply does not exist. The argument you had this morning, the deadline pressing at the end of the week, the anxiety that woke you at 3 a.m, all of it contracts to something vanishingly small against the scale of what surrounds you. Not nothing, but small. Small enough to hold in proportion. There is a kind of freedom in that. For others, the same moment crushes. If the universe is vast and old and indifferent, then what accumulates in a human life dissolves against that scale. Accomplishments that took decades to build leave no mark on the void. Civilizations rise and are swallowed by the dark without the universe noticing. The indifference is not neutral, it is oppressive. Both responses are honest. Neither is wrong. The void does not take sides. What the void does do is clarify a fact that is easy to forget on the surface of a living world. Humans are temporary. We are local. We are small. The universe is vast and old and dark in a way that light barely touches. Darkness is not the exception in the cosmos. It is the rule. Light is the rare thing, the brief thing. Stars are scattered and isolated, burning for a time that is long by human measure and short by cosmic measure, and the space between them is cold and dark, and will remain so long after the last star goes out. Darkness is not an interruption of the universe, it is the universe's dominant feature. That fact can land in two ways, and tonight is not the place to resolve which is right. Both are valid. And the feeling that it produces, that combination of being humbled and somehow also freed, is not a sign of confusion. It is an accurate response to an accurate perception. The evolutionary fear, the primal unease in the dark, was never equipped for this. It was built for a world where darkness hid threats that could be outrun or outfought. It was not built for a darkness with no threat in it at all, only emptiness in every direction without end. In the face of that, the ancient system fires anyway, because it has no other setting. And the reasoning mind, which knows perfectly well that there is nothing there to fear, watches it fire and cannot fully stop it. That is what cosmic darkness does to a human being. It does not merely challenge the senses. It reaches down into something encoded long before this species ever looked up and wondered what the dark between the stars might be. And it asks a question the fear was never designed to answer. What you feel in response to that question is the closest thing to an honest reckoning with the universe's actual character that a human being can experience. And that reckoning, as it turns out, is only one of the things waiting in the dark. That reckoning does not stay theoretical. For the people who will actually go, the darkness is not a philosophical condition. It is an engineering problem. A crude mission to Mars, using the technology available now or within the next generation, takes somewhere between 6 and 9 months one way. 6 to 9 months in a spacecraft smaller than most apartments, moving through a region where the nearest help is not hours away or even days away, but months, where no rescue is possible, where no resupply arrives on short notice, where the crew is entirely on their own, and outside every window, the same thing, unchanging dark, motionless distant stars, nothing moving, nothing shifting, no weather, no horizon, no sense of progress visible to the naked eye. That is what makes the Mars transit different from anything humans have done before. It is not merely the distance, it is the quality of the experience during the crossing. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station have described something that seems minor, but turns out to matter enormously. They can see Earth, they can recognize cloud systems forming over oceans, they can pick out coastlines, river deltas, the faint glow of cities at night. In interviews, crew members from long ISS missions return to this repeatedly. The visual connection to Earth was not a luxury, it was a psychological anchor, something familiar and alive in a window, something to orient toward. On a Mars mission, that anchor disappears, not gradually and gently, visibly and permanently, within weeks. Earth starts as a blue marble. The description is borrowed from the famous photograph taken by the Apollo 17 crew in 1972, and it holds, from low orbit, Earth fills the view, blue and white, and detailed and unmistakably home. But the spacecraft keeps moving. Days pass, weeks pass, the marble shrinks, the blue fades to a point, and then, somewhere in the middle of the transit, Earth becomes indistinguishable from the stars around it. A pale dot. Then not even that. It is simply gone, absorbed into the background of a sky that looks the same in every direction. Mars, at the other end of the journey, offers no comfort during the crossing. For most of the transit, it's a slowly brightening reddish point. Not a world, not a surface, a dot that grows slightly less faint, week after week, until it eventually resolves into something recognizable. But that resolution comes late. For most of the journey, the crew has no visual destination and no visual home. The spacecraft is the entire world. Everything outside is dark and silent and featureless. Communication does not fill that gap. At maximum separation between Earth and Mars, a one-way signal takes up to 20 minutes to arrive. A genuine conversation, the kind where one person says something and another responds, becomes impossible. A crew member records a message. 40 minutes later, at minimum, they receive a reply. The rhythm of real conversation is gone. What remains is correspondence, not contact. something closer to letters exchanged across great distance than to talking to another person. The isolation this produces is not the isolation of a remote research station in Antarctica or a long submarine deployment, though those are the analogies mission planners reach for. Those environments still have a planet underneath them. They still have weather above. They still have the knowledge that help, while distant, exists on the same sphere and can reach you inside hours or days. On a Mars transit, the nearest help is months away and on the wrong side of a communication delay. There is no immediate rescue. There is no planet below. There is only the small pressurized volume the crew occupies and the dark pressing in on every side. Mission planners know this. They have known it for decades, and they have worked on it with the same methodical attention they give to propulsion and life support. The countermeasures are practical and deliberate. Scheduled communication windows with Earth give the crew predictable contact points, even if real conversation is impossible. Entertainment systems carry enormous libraries of films, music, and books, enough to fill years of waking hours. Crew selection emphasizes psychological resilience over almost every other variable. The people chosen for long, deep space missions are selected not only for competence and physical health, but for their documented ability to maintain morale and function under confinement, isolation, and sustained uncertainty. Interpersonal compatibility within the small crew becomes a survival factor, not a secondary consideration. But the deeper problem is the habitat itself. A spacecraft for long-duration missions cannot simply be a functional container. It has to counteract the psychological weight of darkness from the outside. Weight. The design instinct might be to install large windows everywhere to give the crew as much of a view as possible. But that view is the problem. Looking out and seeing nothing but motionless dark and stars that do not shift, no matter how many months pass, is not comforting. It is the visual embodiment of the isolation. So spacecraft designs for long missions often include limited windows, or windows that can be covered. The darkness outside is real, and staring into it for months at a time is not recommended. Instead, the interior compensates. Adjustable lighting simulates day and night cycles, maintaining the circadian rhythm the body expects, even when there is no sunrise outside and no sunset. The circadian clock, the internal biological timing system that governs sleep, hormone release, digestion, and mood, depends on light cues. Without them, it drifts. The consequences are not merely fatigue. They extend to cognitive performance, emotional regulation, and immune function. Simulated daylight is not aesthetic. It is medical. Color and visual art appear in habitat designs for the same reason. The visual system is accustomed to variety and change. A monochrome gray interior in a dark capsule is a sensory environment that works against the crew. Small things matter. Texture matters. Something worth looking at matters. The underlying principle, buried inside every one of these countermeasures, is the same. Darkness affects the mind and mood in ways that are not solved by knowing the darkness is there for a good reason. The knowledge does not override the signal. The ancient wiring does not respond to rational explanation. Mission engineers are building systems to compensate for a psychological reality that cannot be argued away, only managed. And there is something important to note about how much they actually know. Long-duration psychological response over months in deep space is largely untested. Analog environments, isolated stations, submarine deployments, long ISS stays, these provide data. But they are not the same. The absence of Earth in the window, the length of the communication delay, the physical impossibility of early return. These are factors that have never been studied under real conditions, because no human being has experienced real conditions. The models are extrapolations. The plans are reasoned guesses built on incomplete information. What happens to the mind over 9 months in true deep space, with the home planet gone from the sky and the destination only a brightening point, is something humanity will learn when the first crews make the crossing. The engineering is as good as it can be, but the full weight of the darkness has not yet been tested against a human crew. That test is still coming. Set the spacecraft aside for a moment. Set aside the engineering and the crew selection and the carefully managed light cycles. There is something more fundamental waiting underneath all of it. Something that has to do not with the darkness outside the window, but with what the word darkness actually means. Start here. The human eye is sensitive to a narrow band of the electromagnetic spectrum, the range of frequencies we call visible light. That band runs from wavelengths of roughly 400 nanometers at the violet end to roughly 700 nanometers at the red end. Those numbers are very small and very precise, but what matters is the proportion. The full electromagnetic spectrum does not span 1 octave, the way an instrument string spans a doubling of frequency. It spans more than 60 octaves, radio waves at one end, gamma rays at the other, wavelengths ranging from the size of buildings down to smaller than the nucleus of an atom. The visible band occupies less than 1 of those 60 octaves. Humans see less than 2% of the electromagnetic information present in any environment. Not most of it, not the majority of it. Less than 2%. Here is what that means for the darkness of space. When you look into what appears to be an empty, lightless region between galaxies, that region is not silent. It is filled with electromagnetic radiation at wavelengths your eyes were never built to receive. Infrared light from distant galaxies pours through it. The cosmic microwave background, the faint thermal afterglow of the universe's earliest era, permeates every cubic centimeter of space at microwave frequencies, completely invisible to biological tissue. Pulsars, the collapsed remnants of dead stars spinning hundreds of times per second, are broadcasting radio waves across thousands of light years. Quasars, some of the most energetic objects the universe has ever produced, are pouring radiation in every direction from billions of light years away. That radiation passes through regions that look, to a human eye, like absolute nothing. The James Webb Space Telescope, launched in 2021, observes primarily in infrared. It does this for a specific reason. Cosmic expansion stretches the wavelength of light as it travels. A galaxy whose light has been traveling for 12 billion years has had that light stretched far beyond the visible range. To an optical telescope, that galaxy is invisible. To an infrared instrument, it blazes. Webb has revealed entire populations of galaxies that simply did not exist in any previous catalog. Not because they were hidden, because we were looking in the wrong 2%. Radio telescopes detect signals from objects billions of light years away, including signals that pass cleanly through clouds of dust that block all visible light entirely. The dust is opaque to human eyes. It is transparent to longer wavelengths. The information was always getting through. We were not equipped to receive it. This is the first reframe. Darkness, in large part, is a biological category, not a physical one. But that is only the surface of the reframe. Because even accounting for the full electromagnetic spectrum, even imagining an eye that could detect every wavelength from radio to gamma, there is still something the eye would miss. Here is where it gets strange. The vacuum of space is not empty. This is not a poetic statement. It is one of the established results of quantum mechanics. Even in a region of space containing no atoms, no photons, no particles of any kind, quantum fluctuations occur continuously. Virtual particles, pairs of matter and antimatter, briefly appear from the vacuum energy and annihilate almost instantaneously. The process is real. It has measurable consequences. The vacuum itself at the quantum level is a seething, restless medium, never truly at rest, never truly zero. This vacuum energy, sometimes called zero-point energy, may be related to one of the deepest unsolved problems in physics. Dark energy, the name given to whatever is causing the universe's expansion to accelerate rather than slow, accounts for roughly 68% of the total mass energy content of the universe. We do not know what it is. We cannot detect it directly. It does not emit light. It does not absorb light. It does not interact with photons in any measurable way. It is inferred entirely from what it does. From the fact that galaxies are moving apart faster than they should be. From the shape of the universe's large-scale structure. Whether vacuum energy and dark energy are physically the same phenomenon is a question that remains genuinely open. And dark energy is not the only invisible component. Dark matter accounts for roughly 27% of the universe's total mass energy. It does not emit light at any wavelength. It does not absorb light at any wavelength. It does not reflect it. It produces no signal detectable by any optical or electromagnetic instrument ever built. We know it exists because its gravity bends the paths of light passing through galaxy clusters. We know it because galaxies rotate at speeds that cannot be explained by the visible matter they contain. Without something unseen providing additional gravitational pull, those galaxies would fly apart. The mathematics does not work without it, but what it actually is, what particles or fields compose it, remains completely unknown. Add those numbers together. Dark energy, 68%. Dark matter, 27%. The ordinary matter that makes up stars, planets, gas clouds, and every instrument humanity has ever built, roughly 5%. Roughly 95% of the universe's total content is invisible to us by any direct optical means, not partially hidden, not in regions too far away to observe, invisible in principle, passing through us constantly. That last phrase is worth sitting with. Dark matter is not confined to distant galaxies. It permeates the space where you're sitting right now. Physicists estimate that hundreds of thousands of dark matter particles are passing through your body every second. You cannot feel them. They exert no friction, no pressure, no chemical interaction with biological tissue. They carry no charge. They do not bump into atoms. They pass through the solid earth, the way light passes through a pane of clear glass, without so much as slowing down. You are standing in a current you will never feel. The current does not know you are there. There is no interface between your body and the bulk of the universe's mass. There never will be. The darkness is not the absence of what is there. The darkness is the limit of what we can detect. And even this is not the final layer, because the last layer is not outside the body. It is inside it. When photons enter the eye, they trigger a cascade of retinal chemistry. That chemistry converts into an electrical signal. The signal travels along the optic nerve to the visual cortex at the back of the brain. The visual cortex processes the input and constructs an experience of the world. But here is what the visual cortex does when no input arrives. It does not go quiet. It does not produce silence the way a speaker produces silence when the audio is cut. It generates an experience anyway. The experience of darkness is itself a construction. The brain produces it the same way it produces the experience of light. It is a brain state, not a physical measurement. And in extended darkness, the brain does something stranger still. Within days of sustained light deprivation, the visual cortex begins accepting input from other senses. Sound and touch start activating areas of the brain that, in a sighted person under normal conditions, respond only to light. This process is called cross-modal plasticity. The brain rewires. The territory assigned to vision begins processing other information because vision is sending nothing. The architecture shifts. The experience of darkness is not static. It changes the organ that perceives it. The darkness of space is therefore two things at once. It is objective in the sense that no photons reach the eye from the surrounding environment. And it is subjective in the sense that the brain constructs the experience of that absence actively and continuously and adapts itself to the absence over time. What looks like nothing is filled with the electromagnetic radiation we cannot see. What looks like empty vacuum seethes with quantum activity. What we call darkness is mostly the shape of our own biology pressed against the face of a universe that is not organized around what we happen to be able to detect. The universe does not know we are here. Most of it passes through us without leaving a trace. We perceive 2% of the light. We cannot feel the matter that comprises most of the mass. We cannot observe the energy that shapes the structure of everything. And the very experience of all that darkness is assembled, moment by moment, in a 3-pound organ that has never stopped trying to make something visible out of whatever it receives. That is not a limitation that engineering will solve. It is the permanent condition of a biological species trying to understand a cosmos that was not built for their senses. And what we have managed to learn working from inside that condition is more remarkable than anything the darkness might seem to hide. There is a place, though, where none of this applies, where the biology does not matter, the adaptation does not help, and the engineering countermeasures are beside the point. A place where darkness is not the product of distance or vacuum or the narrow limits of human vision. A place where darkness is written into the structure of physics itself. Black holes are regions where gravity has become so strong that nothing can escape. Not particles, not radiation, not light. At a certain boundary, called the event horizon, the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light. And since nothing in the universe travels faster than light, nothing crosses that boundary outward, ever. Light trying to escape from inside curves back inward. Light arriving from behind the hole bends around it. The result is a region that emits nothing and reflects nothing. Not dim, not deeply shadowed, perfectly, physically, permanently black. The Event Horizon Telescope captured images of 2 supermassive black holes, one at the center of a galaxy called M87, and one at the center of our own Milky Way, called Sagittarius, a star. Both images are genuinely astonishing, but here is the thing to understand about them. What you see in those images is not the black hole itself. It is the intensely bright material orbiting just outside it, heated to extreme temperatures, glowing across the full electromagnetic spectrum. At the center of that bright ring sits a dark shadow. That shadow is where the black hole is. That shadow is where light does not return. If you could hover near one, the view would be strange in a precise and measurable way. A circular region of absolute blackness. Not the deep black of a moonless sky. Not the formless dark of a sealed room. a circle cut from the fabric of what is visible, with no texture, no variation, no depth to perceive. Surrounding it, a distorted ring of starlight bent around the hole by gravity. Stars that should have been behind the black hole appear around its edge, their light curving through curved space-time to reach your eye from an impossible direction. The center of that ring contains nothing, the ultimate dark, and then the deeper implication. If an observer were to cross the event horizon, they would pass into a region causally disconnected from the rest of the universe. No light from outside could ever reach them again. Not because it is too dim, because the geometry of space-time itself prevents its arrival. That is not darkness by absence. That is darkness by severance. A region the rest of the universe can no longer touch with light, by any means, from any source, ever. The tidal forces near most black holes would destroy ordinary matter long before any crossing. So this remains theoretical, but the physics is not in question. The event horizon is the hardest boundary darkness has. Beyond it, the concept of illumination simply ends. We can step back from there, come back through the galaxy, back into the solar system, back to where humans actually live and travel. And the question shifts from the extremes of physics to something more immediate. What does darkness actually feel like at each rung of the solar system? How does illumination change as you move outward from the sun? The answer is not what most people expect. Start at the International Space Station. It orbits at roughly 250 miles above Earth's surface, which sounds like the beginning of deep space. It is not. The sun, at that altitude, is actually slightly stronger than on Earth's surface. There is no atmosphere to absorb any fraction of the incoming energy. The station experiences roughly 16 sunrises and sunsets per day as it races around the planet. Even during its brief passages through Earth's shadow, the darkness never lasts more than about 45 minutes. And even on the night side, city lights glow below. Station lighting fills the interior. Instruments and displays illuminate the workspace. ISS crews do not experience true space darkness in any sustained way. They live inside an electrically lit bubble, moving fast enough to outrun the night. The moon is different. This is where the Artemis program is sending people back, and the lunar environment has a quality that no Earth analogy quite prepares for. The moon has no atmosphere. None. That means there is no twilight. On Earth, the atmosphere scatters sunlight for an extended period after the sun drops below the horizon, softening the transition into night. On the moon, sunset is a hard edge. One moment the surface is in full, unfiltered sunlight. The next moment, it is in absolute dark. No gradual dimming, no lingering glow. Instant. And lunar night lasts roughly 14 Earth days at any given location. During those 2 weeks, Earthshine provides some light. Earth, seen from the lunar surface, appears roughly 4 times wider than the moon appears from Earth, and Earth is far more reflective. The illumination is real, but it is insufficient for detailed work, for navigation across uneven terrain, for any task requiring precision. Lunar surface operations during the night will need artificial lighting throughout. Rover headlights, base floodlights, suit-mounted lights for every activity. The darkness is not a background condition, it is an operational constraint. Mars softens that somewhat. The thin Martian atmosphere creates a brief twilight, which the moon entirely lacks. But sunlight on the Martian surface is roughly 43% of what falls on Earth, less than half. The 2 tiny moons, Phobos and Deimos, provide minimal nighttime illumination. Martian nights are mostly dark, quiet, and long. Move outward, and the numbers shift fast. At Jupiter's distance, Sunlight falls to roughly 4% of Earth's. At Saturn, around 1%. For human scale, consider what that means. Standing on one of Jupiter's moons, the Sun would appear as a very bright star, bright enough to cast faint shadows. Not bright enough for comfortable human vision without supplementation. Jupiter itself, when visible, reflects substantial light across its moons. But when Jupiter is below the horizon, or when you're on the far side of a moon from it, the darkness deepens substantially. You are living in starlight. Functional, measurable starlight. But not sunlight in any familiar sense. Titan is a special case. Saturn's largest moon has an atmosphere denser than Earth's, and that thick haze scatters sunlight into a permanent orange twilight across the entire surface. At noon on Titan, in the middle of its day, surface illumination reaches roughly 1% of Earth's noon sunlight. That sounds almost like darkness described with a number. A useful comparison. Step outside on Earth about an hour after sunset. The sky is still faintly lit. Colors are muted. Vision is possible, but imprecise. That is Titan at high noon. The colors are muted. The shadows are soft. And precision work requires artificial light throughout. Strange that a moon with an atmosphere thicker than Earth's should be so dim. But the atmosphere does not illuminate. It only scatters what little sunlight arrives at Saturn's distance, spreading it evenly into a permanent, insufficient glow. Beyond Saturn, the transition is decisive. The Sun becomes just another bright star. At Uranus, sunlight is about 1/4% of Earth's. At Neptune, about 1/10 of 1%. To give those numbers shape, the Sun seen from Neptune is roughly 200 times brighter than the full moon appears from Earth. 200 times brighter sounds like a lot, but the full moon, for all its beauty, does not allow most humans to read comfortably, to identify a face at distance, or to perform any task requiring fine detail. The Sun at Neptune's distance is brighter than that. It is still the brightest object in the sky by a wide margin, and it is still not enough. Any permanent human settlement in the outer solar system would live entirely inside engineered light. Not as a preference, as a requirement. Subterranean habitats, which engineers favor for radiation shielding and temperature stability, would have no windows at all. Every photon of useful light would be produced artificially, on demand, powered by reactors or solar arrays. The psychology of that is genuinely uncertain. Circadian systems evolved under a sky with the sun. Those systems require light cues to maintain their rhythm, their timing, their coordination with the body's other biological clocks. Full-spectrum artificial lighting can substitute, but the long-term effects of living entirely inside an engineered light environment, for years, for decades, for a lifetime, remain largely untested. Surface habitats with windows would offer something different but not simpler. Black sky always, no blue atmosphere, no softening of the light, harsh, unfiltered shadows wherever the sun strikes, and then nothing. Stars visible at all times, even when the sun is above the horizon, because there is nothing to scatter its light across the sky. The clarity would be remarkable. The alien quality of it, over years, over generations, is harder to predict. Which brings the question that experience alone can answer. Children born on the moon, or on Mars, or on a station in the outer solar system will grow up under black skies. They will know artificial lighting as the baseline. They will know the sun as a point source, not a sky-filling presence. Whether a human visual and psychological system developed from birth in that environment will reach for something it never experienced is genuinely unknown. Whether there is a need for an Earth-style sky written into the species, or whether the species is flexible enough that a child raised under different light will simply find that light normal, is a question no data yet answers. The engineering of human light environments in space is already well underway. The deeper question, the one about what happens to human beings who live in those environments, not for a mission but for a life, is still waiting for its first real test. That question, the one about what happens to people who live inside engineered light for a lifetime rather than a mission, is one thread. But there is a longer thread beneath it, one that stretches back further than any mission, further than any civilization, further than the species itself. Lengthen the time horizon enough, and the darkness we have been tracing through space takes on a different character entirely. It becomes something that changes, something that was not always there, and something that will not always be there, and something we are sitting inside right now at a particular, unrepeatable moment. Start with what the light is telling us. The Andromeda Galaxy sits roughly 2.5 million light years away. That means the light reaching our telescopes tonight left Andromeda 2.5 million years ago. We are not seeing Andromeda as it is. We are seeing it as it was when our ancestors were still learning to shape stone tools. If Andromeda were to explode tonight, the signal would not arrive for another 2.5 million years. The night sky would not change for longer than our species has existed. Now extend that outward. The most distant galaxies we can observe are more than 13 billion light years away. We see them as they were a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. But something was wrong, because the universe has been expanding the whole time that light was traveling. Those galaxies are not 13 billion light years away now. They are far more distant than the travel time of their light suggests. And some galaxies have already crossed a threshold. They are receding, not moving through space in the conventional sense, but carried outward by the expansion of space itself. And some of them are now receding faster than light can cross the growing distance to reach us. Their light will never arrive. They are beyond what we call the cosmic horizon. They exist. We simply cannot see them, and we never will. And it gets darker than that. The expansion of space is accelerating. Over vast timescales, more and more galaxies will cross that horizon. The observable universe will shrink. Astronomers in the far future, if any exist, will look out and see fewer galaxies. They may have no way to reconstruct that expansion is even happening. The evidence we have today, the evidence that revealed the structure and history of the cosmos, will simply be gone, not destroyed, moved beyond reach. We are living in a privileged window, not slightly privileged, dramatically privileged. Now come back further, to the beginning. Just after the Big Bang, the universe was not dark at all. It was a hot, dense plasma, uniformly luminous in every direction. There was no darkness anywhere. Light was not traveling through space so much as space itself was filled with it. But around 380,000 years after the Big Bang, something changed. Electrons and protons, which had been moving freely in that plasma, combined into neutral hydrogen and helium atoms. For the first time, light could travel freely rather than being constantly scattered and absorbed. That moment of release is called recombination, and the light emitted at that instant is still reaching us today. It is the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe, now cooled and stretched by expansion into the microwave range, invisible to the human eye, but detectable by radio telescopes. But after that release came something unexpected. Silence. Not light-filled silence. Dark silence. For hundreds of millions of years after recombination, there were no stars. The universe cooled, the cosmic microwave background faded and shifted, and the universe entered what cosmologists call the cosmic dark ages, darker than any environment we have explored in this conversation. No stars, no galaxies, no surfaces to catch light, just slowly cooling hydrogen and helium gas, drifting in a vast, nearly featureless dark. Then, roughly 200 million years after the Big Bang, the first stars ignited. They were nothing like our sun. They were enormous. Some may have had masses hundreds of times greater than the sun's. They burned fast, lived briefly, and ended in supernovae that scattered heavy elements, carbon, oxygen, iron, across space for the first time. Over billions of years, galaxies assembled. The universe brightened steadily, and then it peaked. Star formation across the universe reached its maximum rate roughly 10 billion years ago. Since then, it has been declining. New stars are still forming. Our sun formed about 4.5 billion years ago, well past the peak. But the overall rate of stellar birth across the cosmos has been falling for a very long time. We live past the peak of cosmic light production. We are on the long slope down. The descent is slow by human timescales, trillions of years slow. Star formation will continue at decreasing rates for trillions of years to come. But eventually, roughly 100 trillion years from now, the last star will burn out. What remains will be black holes, neutron stars, white dwarfs cooling toward black dwarfs, dead planets, and cold rock. Occasional brief light, a planet falling into a black hole, white dwarfs colliding in a rare supernova. But the universe will grow darker and darker, and the intervals between those brief flares will grow longer. Even the remnants fade. Black holes are not permanent. They radiate very slowly through a process called Hawking radiation, the faint emission of energy from the edge of the event horizon. A black hole with the mass of our sun would take roughly 10 to the power of 67 years to evaporate completely. That number needs a moment. The current age of the universe is about 14 billion years, which is 10 to the power of 10. The evaporation timescale for a single solar mass black hole is 10 to the 67th. The age of the universe is a rounding error compared to that number. A rounding error of a rounding error. And yet the process continues. All black holes, given enough time, will eventually evaporate. The last one gone by around 10 to the power of 100 years. After that, photons, neutrinos, and fundamental particles thinly spread across an enormous, cold, expanded space. Effectively zero temperature, no stars, no light, no surfaces, eternal, absolute darkness, heat death. The second law of thermodynamics, which says that entropy always increases, that organized energy always disperses, carried to its final conclusion. This is not a metaphor. It is the best current physical prediction for the ultimate fate of the universe. And yet the bleak conclusion carries a reframe. We are not at the end. We are early. We live in the bright era, a window in which stars burn, planets form, life is possible, and observation means something. That window will remain open for trillions more years. Future generations, if they exist across that span, will look back at an era like ours as remarkably, almost incomprehensibly luminous. But future generations in the far future may not be the ones who lose the night sky first. We are already losing it. For nearly all of human history, the night sky was present. Every clear night, stars were visible in numbers that made them unavoidable. Cultures used them for navigation, for timekeeping, for understanding the seasons. The sky was not a special destination. It was the ceiling of the world that has changed within a single lifetime. Roughly 80% of the world's population now lives under light-polluted skies. In the United States and Europe, that figure exceeds 99%. The glow of cities spreads for hundreds of miles in every direction, not just in cities. In rural areas hours from the nearest urban center, the horizon carries an orange haze that washes out the faintest stars. The Milky Way, the broad band of our own galaxy visible on dark nights, is gone for most people, not obscured by weather, removed from the accessible sky by artificial brightness. Many children growing up in cities have never seen the Milky Way. They have no reference for what was lost because they were never given the chance to encounter it. Space, for them, is an idea, an abstraction, something that exists in photographs. Visit a dark sky preserve, a protected zone with strictly controlled artificial lighting, and the difference is not subtle. Thousands of stars appear. The Milky Way resolves into a structural band, textured, layered, bright enough in its densest regions to cast a faint shadow. Planets and satellites and meteors move visibly across the sky. The experience is described by people who grew up under city skies as something close to disorienting, a recovered depth perception for the universe they had been told existed but had never seen. The loss is not only cultural, it is biological. Humans evolved with strong day and night cycles, bright days, dark nights. The circadian system, the internal clock that regulates sleep, hormone release, digestion, immune function, and dozens of other processes, is anchored to light. The brain interprets light as a signal that it is daytime and suppresses melatonin, the hormone that promotes sleep and regulates the transition into biological nighttime. Artificial light at night confuses that signal. The brain cannot easily distinguish between the sun and a street lamp in terms of its basic photochemical response. The consequences are measurable. Disrupted circadian rhythms are linked to insomnia, depression, obesity, diabetes, and increased risk of some cancers. Natural darkness is not merely aesthetic. It is a biological requirement the species evolved over hundreds of thousands of years and is now, in the span of a century, being systematically denied. The ISS makes the cost visible in concentrated form. Aboard the station, crews experience 16 sunrises and sunsets per day. Without intervention, that cycle would destroy circadian function entirely. Mission planners designed a 24-hour artificial lighting schedule, warmer and dimmer the crew's designated evening, brighter and bluer during their scheduled day. Sleep masks and other protocols help. Even so, many astronauts report persistent sleep difficulties. The body's ancient timekeeping system, tuned to a single day and night per 24 hours, cannot fully reconcile itself with the light environment it is actually receiving. Future space habitats will face the same problem in permanent form. Engineers designing lunar bases know that the moon's natural day is 29.5 Earth days long. No human circadian system can adapt to that. All light will be engineered. The Mars day runs about 24 hours and 39 minutes, close enough to Earth's that adaptation is plausible. But sunlight on Mars is already weaker than what humans evolved under, and the dusty atmosphere shifts its quality further. Supplementation will still be needed. The reframe is this: city dwellers are already living inside designed light environments. Streetlights, interior lighting, screen glow. The off-world habitat is not a departure from how most humans already live. It is an extension of it, a version without the occasional dark walk, the window with a real sky behind it, the rare trip somewhere the lights have not reached. The cost is the same in both cases, only the degree differs. A deepening disconnection from the darkness that the cosmos is mostly made of, from the darkness that shaped the species, from the darkness that, on the longest time scales, is where everything is heading anyway. We are living in the bright era of the universe. We are also, on Earth, making the bright era of our own nights permanent in ways our biology did not anticipate, and our grandchildren may not be able to reverse. That narrowing gap between what the cosmos offers and what we allow ourselves to receive is part of the story that still has no ending written. Some things can only be understood by going there. And the people who designed the Apollo missions understood the engineering of it. The orbital mechanics, the fuel ratios, the thermal loads, the communication protocols. What they could not fully design for was what it would feel like to leave. To leave not just the ground, but the entire architecture of a species' existence. To leave the only place where human eyes had ever opened and found a world that answered back. In December 1968, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and William Anders became the first human beings to leave Earth orbit. Apollo 8. They were pointed at the moon, and then the moon was below them, and then they were behind it. Radio contact with Earth dropped. Gone. Not delayed, not weak, not static. Gone. For approximately 45 minutes, they were more isolated from other human beings than any people in recorded history. There was no signal to send, no one to hear. The lunar surface stretched below them, ancient and silent, and beyond it was the void. Jim Lovell described looking out into that darkness and feeling something he did not have a precise word for. Not fear exactly, something deeper. The stars were there, thousands of them, but they offered no comfort and no proximity. They provided no scale. The darkness between them did not feel like space. It felt like something you could fall into and never stop falling. On December 24th, 1968, William Anders raised his camera. Earth rose above the lunar horizon, a half-illuminated blue and white sphere. Small, alone, against absolute black. Nothing else in the frame. Nothing else anywhere near it. The photograph he took that morning, the one we call Earthrise, did not show the grandeur of the cosmos. It showed the fragility of home. 4 years later, in December 1972, the crew of Apollo 17 looked back at a fully illuminated Earth from a distance of about 28,000 miles. They photographed it. The blue marble, no shadows, no partial illumination. The whole planet, alone, suspended in black space with nothing alongside it. Among the most reproduced photographs in human history, its power comes entirely from the contrast. The Earth is vivid and curved and alive and warm in color. The space around it is not. The space around it is a field of nothing, and the nothing goes on in every direction without end. But the biggest surprise was still ahead. The mission that may have taught us the most about what the darkness actually is did not go to the moon at all. In April 1970, an oxygen tank aboard Apollo 13 exploded. The crew, including Jim Lovell, used the lunar module as a lifeboat. To conserve power, they shut down most of the spacecraft's systems. Most of the lighting went with them. For days, they drifted in near darkness, surrounded by the void, with the outcome genuinely uncertain. Lovell later wrote about what he remembered most clearly from those days. It was not the cold, though the cold was severe. It was not the uncertainty, though the uncertainty was total. It was the quality of the darkness itself. He described it as indifferent. The darkness would be there whether they made it home or not. It was not hostile. It was not threatening in any active sense. It simply did not care. And he wrote that this indifference was more unsettling than active hostility would have been. Hostility implies a relationship. something across from you that has registered your existence. The darkness of space registered nothing. It did not want them dead. It did not want anything. It simply was and would remain, regardless of what they did. They made it home. But the experience added something to the vocabulary, something that the physics lectures and the engineering schematics and the press conferences had never quite supplied. The word for what space actually is, in the dark, for the people inside it. Not enemy, indifferent. And indifference is harder to bear. Now consider what machines have gone further into that indifference than any crew ever has. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 launched in 1977. Over the following years, they visited Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Jupiter's Great Red Spot resolved from a smear into a storm system wider than the entire Earth. Saturn's rings broke apart into thousands of individual ringlets, structures no model had fully predicted. Uranus turned out to be tilted so severely that it essentially rolls around the sun on its side, its poles taking turns facing the light. Neptune harbored a great dark spot of its own, and winds clocked at supersonic speeds. Io, one of Jupiter's moons, was discovered to be the most volcanically active body in the solar system. Europa hid a liquid ocean beneath a shell of ice. Titan carried an atmosphere thicker than Earth's. Triton vented nitrogen geysers from its frozen surface. Every one of those findings was a surprise. And then, on August 25th, 2012, Voyager 1 crossed into interstellar space. It became the first human-made object to leave the solar system, the first artifact of our civilization to enter the dark between the stars. It is now more than 15 billion miles from Earth, more than 160 times the distance from Earth to the Sun. A signal sent to Voyager 1 right now, traveling at the speed of light, takes more than 22 hours to arrive. From where Voyager 1 is, the Sun is just a bright star. Earth is not visible to its cameras. The planet that built it cannot be seen. Voyager 1 is powered by a nuclear battery, a radioisotope thermoelectric generator that loses roughly 4 watts of output every year. Its instruments are expected to go silent somewhere around 2025 to 2030. After that silence, it will not stop. It will drift through interstellar space indefinitely. A dark, dead object, cold, no signal, no power, no awareness of anything around it. A human artifact in permanent cosmic dark, but it carries something. The golden record, sounds and images of Earth, music, voices, greetings in dozens of languages, the sounds of rain and surf and wind, a message in a bottle cast into an ocean with no shore. In approximately 40,000 years, Voyager 1 will pass within about 1.5 light years of a star called Gliese 445. That star will not capture it. It will continue drifting. The record it carries is not going anywhere in particular. It is simply going and will go on going, long after every language on it has been forgotten, and every civilization on it has run its course. Not a triumph of exploration only, an eternal artifact of the dark. New Horizons launched later and went further in some directions. It flew past Pluto in July 2015 and found a world more alive than anyone had predicted. Mountains of water ice rising miles above nitrogen glaciers. Possible cryovolcanoes, complex geological history. A world long assumed to be dead, frozen, simple, revealed instead as layered and active and strange. In January 2019, New Horizons flew past Arakoth, approximately 4 billion miles from the Sun, the most distant object a spacecraft has ever explored. Arakoth is a contact binary, 2 lobes gently touching, formed by a slow merger about 4.5 billion years ago. Pristine, unaltered since the early solar system. the oldest thing we have seen close up. New Horizons is currently about 5 billion miles from Earth. At that distance, sunlight is roughly 0.06% of what falls on Earth's surface, around 300 times dimmer than a bright room. Enough to see by, barely, but a permanent twilight. The sky is always black. No atmosphere scatters anything. Shadows are not dim. They are absolute. And New Horizons 2 will eventually run out of power. It will join the small population of dark drifting objects that humanity has sent outward and cannot call back. Think about what that means for the question of whether we are alone out there. The Fermi paradox puts it plainly. If intelligent civilizations were common in the galaxy, we would expect to see signs of them. Light pollution detectable from the outside. Large-scale engineering visible at astronomical distances. Communication signals crossing the void. We see none of that. The dark is quiet. Either we are genuinely alone, or nearly so. Or other civilizations exist but are separated from us by distances so vast that nothing they have sent has reached us yet. Or the vastness of space simply hides everyone from everyone else, the way the interstellar dark hides Earth from Voyager's cameras. Even now, we have found thousands of exoplanets, worlds orbiting distant stars, but we cannot yet see their surfaces. We cannot yet detect artificial lights from those distances. We can sometimes analyze their atmospheres for chemical signatures that might suggest biology. Sometimes, not always, the detection limits of even our best instruments fall short. Either way, alone or simply isolated, the silence of the dark becomes more profound. Some philosophers argue that this is exactly the mirror the cosmos holds up. Forced to confront the absence of any external architecture of meaning, any cosmic answer to the question of why we are here, the confrontation becomes personal. Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus both circle this territory from different angles. The universe does not provide meaning. The universe does not provide much of anything. Humans must create it, must carry it outward with them into the dark, the way Voyager carries its record. Not finding meaning waiting there, bringing it. There are other readings. Religious and spiritual traditions have often found in the darkness exactly the thing that points toward mystery and transcendence. The sacred in many traditions is not located in the comfortable and the familiar. It lives at the edge of what can be seen. Multiple readings are valid, and the darkness offers no commentary on which is correct. What the darkness does offer, eventually, is time. If humanity settles space, the darkness becomes ordinary. Future generations born on stations, on lunar bases, on habitats far out in the solar system will not inherit the fear of the dark that was calibrated for predators in an African night. They will be born under black skies. They will grow up with artificial lighting as the baseline and consider a blue atmospheric daytime sky, if they ever see one, strange and diffuse and unfamiliar. The Inuit and other cultures of the polar night developed practices over centuries to thrive in extended darkness. Technologies, traditions, social rhythms organized around what the light actually does and does not provide. Future space-born cultures may develop their own equivalents. Holidays timed to planetary alignments, anniversaries of arrival at new worlds, rituals built around astronomical events the way older civilizations built them around solstices and harvests. Children raised in submarines, on oil rigs, at remote polar stations, adapt to their environments in ways their parents did not anticipate and often cannot fully share. Space-born children will adapt too. The question of whether a need for Earth-style sky is written into human biology at a level deeper than culture, or whether the species is flexible enough from birth, remains genuinely open. It may split the species eventually. An Earth-born population that struggles with space, and a space-born population that struggles with Earth, each carrying sensory assumptions the other cannot fully bridge. Technology may help, it cannot fully replace. What the missions have taught us, and what the philosophy confirms, is this. Darkness is the default state of the universe. Light is the exception. Space is not malevolent. It is indifferent, as Jim Lovell discovered in The Cold Dark of April 1970. And indifference requires a different kind of response than hostility. You cannot fight indifference. You can only bring something of your own into it. The future of humanity may be written in that darkness, not by eliminating it, by carrying light into it, the way a match is carried into a cave, not illuminating everything, illuminating enough to see the next step. The universe will not write that story. We bring the meaning with us the way Voyager carries its record outward into the permanent dark, still moving, still going, long after the last instrument has fallen silent. The darkness is not the end. It is the field on which the next chapter is waiting to be written.